The next stop in the Disney retro series here on my channel is The Lone Ranger. This movie came out 10 summers ago, and this was billed as the big reunion between Johnny Depp and Gore Verbinski after the success of Pirates of the Caribbean. And this is considered one of the biggest financial box office flops of all time. And I've never really understood why. And part of this was actually because, truth be told, I had never seen this movie before until now for the purposes of this video. So let's examine this movie and see where exactly it failed. So in 1933, a young boy discovers an ancient Native American in a sideshow carnival tent. The Indian is Tonto, played by Johnny Depp. Yeah, he has a job basically standing around in this little museum. I still don't get it. Tonto was, of course, the old companion of John Reed, a lawman more famously known as the Lone Ranger. Reed is played in this by Armie, and he does well. He's got some charisma. So with this opportunity to set the record straight about his and Reed's adventures, Tonto recalls the day in 1869 nice when he first encountered the man who would be his trusted friend, and he tells about their partnership, bringing down Butch Cavendish, played by William Fichtner, along with other Old West outlaws, action, runaway trains. It's a Western. And I gotta be honest, about halfway through this movie, I was looking back so far and I was like, I don't get where these critics were coming from. Because as someone who absolutely adores the Western genre and thinks it's kind of a lost art these days, I think a lot of Westerns don't necessarily get the aspect of them having fun. Now, the best Westerns of the 2010s onward have been the more ambitious ones. Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight, Bone Tomahawk especially, like a horror Western hybrid. The Lone Ranger kind of harkens back to the old-style Westerns of yesteryear. And I think director Gore Verbinski certainly understands that with all aspects of production. And I found a lot of these characters super enjoyable. Helena Bonham Carter is in this movie. She was a former ballet dancer. When you see that she's introduced with one leg, you immediately get her backstory. The villain is also deliciously despicable. How do these people gloss over that this guy ate the heart of the brother of the hero, and he does so with so much enthusiastic vigor? Like, oh my god, this is a PG-13 Disney flick? Was I actually watching that? Did I just see that? It honestly kind of reminded me of something that you would see in something like a Bone Tomahawk. Something so incredibly terrifying and weird and out there, which is kind of Gore Verbinski's MO if you look at his track record. This guy always goes for the odd and unorthodox approach, and even the most weird projects. And I think he adds a lot of fun flavor to this story with this direction. And not to mention, Hans Zimmer's score is actually very much like the old-style spaghetti westerns of the Clint Eastwood days. I really appreciate all the effort that went into this thing. I think our two leads do have some solid chemistry with one another. Johnny Depp is kind of doing the bug-eyed Jack Sparrow gimmick just in Native American clothing and face paint, which, trust me, is something that I will definitely get into. And I think Armie is certainly a likable hero, and you certainly get behind him in this film. But here's where I think the Lone Ranger missed the bar. They completely marketed this to the Pirates of the Caribbean fandom. Now, I get it. You're talking about their past, you're talking about, this is the team, this is the actor and the director that gave you Pirates of the Caribbean, and they're coming back and they're giving you some more fun action adventure. But if you compare this movie to Pirates of the Caribbean, like, they're two completely different things. That's almost like going to a classic revival of a Broadway play because a Disney person directed it. That may be a bad analogy, but you kind of get my drift here. I don't think a lot of this Pirates of the Caribbean fandom were all that into Westerns. And I think a lot of people just looked at it and were like, yeah, this is just Pirates of the Caribbean if you put a Western backdrop on it. Because a lot of those action sequences and Johnny Depp's bug-eyed performance, yeah, it's tough to disagree with that. Well, not to mention, the movie does follow the Pirates of the Caribbean MO of going way too fucking long. Like, I feel like if you cut this movie in half and you had two different movies centered around the Lone Ranger, probably would have been a lot easier to stomach. But I beg the same question that I did when I was talking about At World's End. Like, why does it need to be this Lawrence of Arabia-style epic in terms of length? And don't say it was for more character development, because you certainly could have trimmed down a lot of that. What could you have trimmed out exactly? The narration. This is where the movie definitely loses me. Johnny Depp having a job just standing in a museum, yeah, it sounds just as ridiculous as I'm talking about it. The makeup is cool, I guess, and the aging is kinda convincing in a sense, but I will tell you that is very hard to suspend my disbelief. As someone who used to work at a museum-style setting, like, you would never see that. And some people might argue, oh, but what about, like, Night at the Museum? Yeah, that's all about when the sun goes down and all the exhibits come to life, and they teach Ben Stiller about history. Yeah, but at least through Night at the Museum, that's consistent across the board. You have so many colorful characters in those movies. This was just done only for the sake of narration. And I don't think this movie needed to be non-linear. I think if you just told it straight up as a cool Lone Ranger Western story, it would have fared much better. But aside from the runtime and the unnecessary need to have Johnny Depp narrate the proceedings, it's a pretty enjoyable film. I can't believe I'm saying that, especially after all the heat I've been giving it. Good performances from everybody involved, solid direction from Gore Verbinski, who is definitely proving to be one of the most unorthodox directors out there. A great musical score from Hans Zimmer, and some really fun action set pieces, mainly set aboard runaway trains. And even though there's a lot of head-scratching maneuvers made in The Lone Ranger, I think it definitely captures what a lot of these modern westerns were missing: the fun factor. Well, not to mention including some of the more ambitious, horrific features of modern Western classics like a Bone Tomahawk. Like, seriously, I still can't get over the villain eating the dude's heart. Like, ugh. And I honestly think it's even more terrifying that Disney was putting that scene out there, and Gore Verbinski wasn't showing you anything. Like, yeah, you see his hand all bloody and whatnot, and you get the idea with all of his sidekicks puking in frame. Like, he does not show you any single second of this villain eating a heart. And I think when it's left up to the audience's imagination of how much this dude enjoys it, it just makes your blood curl even more. But again, as I've said, fear is subjective. As silly as it may have been to market this as the next Pirates of the Caribbean, and while it may have been successful 10 years earlier, let's say if Pirates of the Caribbean never hit theaters and we got The Lone Ranger first, I think this would have stood more of a fair shot. But I think you still definitely have a lot of cool elements to this film. Is it a perfect movie by any stretch? Absolutely freaking not. And this is not just me just saying this for the sake of having a hot take. I think if you haven't seen The Lone Ranger, or if you haven't seen it in a while, maybe give it another shot, because I think there were a lot more good things about this movie that a lot of other people just weren't seeing. Call me crazy, but I'm going to give The Lone Ranger a B-. I am just as shocked saying that to you guys as you probably are hearing it. Let me know what you thought of The Lone Ranger down in the comments section below. What is your favorite Western ever? Lots of fun topics we can discuss over here on the channel, guys. I'm discussing all fun things in movies and entertainment, all things geeky like in the Disney realm on the regular. You're gonna find it all right here, so do subscribe today and tap on that like button as well. Really helps spread the love and helps continue to grow this awesome community. Guys, stay tuned for more videos very soon. Looking forward to catching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem tomorrow at the time of recording. And for those of you wondering where my Blu-ray collection video is, it's coming. It's going to take some time, but it's going to come to you sometime in the month of August. Lots of fun to look forward to, guys. Y'all are the best. And with all that being said, back talk commence.